You're listening to Kkeeba-Live. Let's talk with a man with a loud microphone. Here he is, your host and mine, William Lee. Welcome to Kkeeba-Live. Let's talk about Philadelphia. In Philadelphia in the last week, 11 children have been gunned down. But just recently, in the last few days, in a small area of Philadelphia, their transit bus pulls up to a stop. Across the street, there's a car. 3 people get out with masks, hoods, because they're cowards. They get out, they run across the street. The bus door opens, and children start coming out of the bus, and this is what they heard. Children between the ages of 15 and 18 years of age are gunned down. One male student has been shot several times and is in serious critical condition. Can you even imagine what it would be like to pick up the phone that your child has been taken to a hospital with gunshot wounds? How do you think it feels to those parents? The horror, the terror of thinking, well, I just sent the kids to school. They've been off and on the bus for all the time that they've ever gone to school. I've never had to worry about this. That would be going through my mind. And why? What senseless, low-life scum would pull such a stunt? I don't understand it. And when I sit back and think about it time and time again while we're doing these podcasts, I often wonder to myself, what went wrong? Do we get to the point now where police officers are just gentlemen that are in costume and run around and law and order is no longer needed? Is it to the point now whereas we're back to the Wild West where you have a disagreement and you stand out in the front street, you pace off 30 feet, you look at each other and you say, okay, draw, and we shoot to kill? No. I don't think our civilization's gone that far, but I'm telling you something right now, and I think that you're probably going to agree and start a conversation about this. These children were shot senselessly. 11 so far in this particular area of Philadelphia have been gunned down. There is no excuse for this. It is nothing but hatred. Could it be caused by, well, shall we say misguided youth that just, didn't have a very good home life and, they were picked on in school and this is the way that they get back at those that have judged them, they feel? If that's the case, then maybe we should have psychiatrists out on the streets immediately, not police officers, so that when this starts, they can run over and say, now, Johnny, that was really bad of you to shoot that person. Why did you shoot that young man or that little girl? Why did you rape or rob that grandma? Why do you push people down on the street and when they get up, you steal their purse and smack them in the face when they're defenseless? Is it because you have built-in hostilities that we need to work on? Hogwash. What we need to work on is unbolt the doors to law enforcement, open the doors to the courtroom, and make it extremely clear. You do the crime, you're going to do the time, and we will get you. That's what we need to talk about. Now, Kurt Russell, the movie star that everybody has heard from time to time about different key issues, had this to say about gun control. And I think he hit it right on the head. Maybe he even came up with a solution. Here is the excerpt that we have available to us. So take a listen.
Well, you can look. If you think gun control or something like that is going to change a terrorist point of view, I think you're like out of your mind. I think anybody is. I think it's absolutely insane. The problem we're having right now is that we don't have the concepts of how to turn it around and say, you may think you've got me worried about what you're going to do. Dude, you're about to find out what I'm going to do. And that's going to worry you a lot more. And that's what we need.
Now, I don't know if I agree or disagree on ideology that causes these types of incidents to happen. But I'm a grandfather and a great-grandfather, and my children are scattered throughout the state of Washington. There's some down in Texas now and in other different areas in the world. And here I am sitting here wondering, are my grandkids okay? Are they going to have to live in a world where they can't get off a school bus in fear they're going to be shot, or a city bus, or a subway station, in fear that some idiotic low-life scumball who claims that he had a bad childhood has the right to take out a gun and kill someone? No. I can't understand either why people that watch these video games and let their kids spend 20, 30 hours a week blowing people up and killing people. Why do we do that, I wonder? Could that be the frame that causes this type of activity and behavior of a child? Now, we've looked at the stats and the problems of schools concerning school safety, concerning different aspects of how to make sure our children are safe when they go to school. And, of course, we've made some very large commitments to communities that our security efforts in schools are of high quality and will protect our children from this problem that's happened in schools across this country. Senseless shootings by students who, we're going to show them, boy, we're tough. We're going to make history and die doing it. This is so wrong. And I often look at it and say to myself that there's got to be an inside or an eternal reason for this. Now, when we talk to those that are basically educators that look at what's going on in child's performance, how they mature, what psychological approaches we need to teach and use in this classroom to keep control of the situation, of course, of bullying and fights amongst students, we really don't really understand the full program. But then, of course, these people that are the great individual of child performances often, I feel, should have looked and put feet on the ground and looked at what exactly is going on. The hypothesis that, Junior is just active and he's a little upset because mommy and daddy at home argue, or the situation of the child, just needs to have a completely different environment of calmness, and we mustn't yell or we mustn't use any corporal punishment, any of the types of I feel, bad discipline that was used on students 25 or 30 years ago in schools. And horrible thought, do we really need resource officers with guns or police officers monitoring school parking lots, walking up and down the hallways? Do we need to lock all the doors in the classrooms and only let the kids out with heavy supervision? In some schools, they've been asked, the police department, to stay away from the grounds. It's bad on the children. It makes them feel unsafe, and it just scares them to see a police dog or a police officer fully armed and ready to do combat. If somebody breaks into the schools or classrooms, pulls out a gun out of his backpack and shoots his teacher and a few students, that's a type of environment that we can't have. So we'll build schools with different types of alarm systems, as I mentioned, and locked doors. And we'll treat our kids like they have been sentenced on a felony charge and sent to a penitentiary. There they remain safe in their little classrooms. This isn't education, and you can see it in the SAT scores that are occurring and some of the other testing to find out how educated these kids are after they go through school. It's not happening. We've got teachers that are scared to death of students that are, let's put it this way, so social-minded and social active in social media that they like TikTok challenges or things of that nature. We've talked about slap the teacher in the head already once on our podcast shows, and the great challenges that you can do when you have a cell phone with a camera on it. You can get into watching girls in the restroom fight it out. Or in the hallways is Johnny, I don't like the way you comb your hair. You look like a putz, so I'm going to push you in the locker. and fights break out. What do you think happens to Johnny when he goes home and thinks about, I got pushed around, or I got my lunch money taken away from me, or I'm made fun of? Well, after a while, they lose it. And then back to social media. Here's what I'm going to do when I go to school with my dad's gun stuffed in my backpack. I don't know what else we can do or talk about that makes it more clear that a conversation needs to be started with the parents, the schools, the real hardcore, what I call people that make a difference for our kids and our communities. Adding respect back to a police officer, not having a kid, oh, yeah, that's it. Dad tells me that guy, he's a cop because he's a tough guy. That way he can hurt people and get away with it. We don't need that anymore. We need police officers to have children understand they're there to be protected, and the officers are going to be the first one on the scene to help a child out in like a murderous situation that is occurring in our schools, or back to the school bus or transit bus shooting. I just get so upset. And when I think about all these things going on, I often wonder, will we ever get this under control? Or are the politicians so bent on taking away guns or clearing our air for clean air that school violence is just one of those things? Are we to the point now where the criminals know that it's going to be really tough for them to convict us? They can't really do much to us when they get us anyway. We'll just end up getting our hands slapped, the gun taken away, spend a few weeks in jail, get out for community service, and be back out on the streets in no time with a new gun, new motto, which is kill or be killed, and once again attack victims throughout our communities. From children to senior citizens, it really doesn't matter to them. As long as they can get that thrill, that, look at what I did. I can be a big man now. That nobody messes with me, or I'll go down and shoot them. And that's the attitude that's really beginning to be a major calling card for gangs and organizations that are running dope, sex trafficking, and the list goes on. The cartels love these type of individuals also because they can recruit them. Yeah. Hey, and what's usually unique about all this as they drive away in their stolen vehicle, it causes a community to be in fear. And when we start a heavy amount of fear and people really get to the point where they're scared to go outside their house or refuse to take and let their kids go to school anymore, that school has to come to the computer in the home, which, by the way, many educators are saying it didn't work during the pandemic. We need those kids in the classroom. We need them to respond and be helped and educated in the fashion which we are accustomed to. And the computer really hasn't gained that much trust yet with the education system because you have to have an idea of what the child's doing when he's sitting at home and the parents are at work and there's the computer and the studies are not being committed. Or other problems that have arose from the electronic age that we're facing now. Students spend a lot of time in school working on different projects with computers. There's computer labs in schools and things of this nature, but it's in a controllable environment. The problem we have now with the kids, this being a big shot, being a hero, being able to run out and, oh, hey, I don't like the way that kid looks, punch him in the face and get away with it is ridiculous. I saw just the other day on social media a woman who was in charge of a bus stop that's an adult to make sure that nobody gets out of control. And if they do, she has the phone to call for help, was actually instigating the fight that turned into a big brawl between students. And what did she do? She actually got in the middle of the brawl also. Yes, she's been arrested, and the two kids that started the fight to begin with are now looking at assault charges. They should be. If we can't teach these kids now, the younger generation, and let's not use the excuse that we can't take time to do that because daddy and mommy got to be out working, so Junior has to pretty well fend on his own. And we really don't have time to do these things of education of the kids or talking with them because they're on their computer or they're outside, talking with their friends or, oh, I don't know, Johnny left a couple hours ago. I guess he'll be back in time for dinner. Who knows? That kind of stuff can't last in a society any longer. Kids need to be raised with parents to give them the foundation of what is truth, what is the law and what it concerns, and the factors of where, how, and when violence is accepted. And without those individual components being put together with common sense and love in the home towards the child and a good community conversation where the neighbors and everybody start watching out for each other and watching for these problems as they start developing and putting a thumb on them immediately, there's going to be nothing but more and more shootings. There's going to be more and more problems. Yes, you're going to say gun control is the answer. As you heard, Kurt Russell really put it down in black and white. I don't think that's going to work. And the reason why. It is incredibly important to us that we have safe communities. And leaders of today need to put down their ideologies of, well, that doggone other guy, that other fellow there on the other side of the aisle is a bad mama jammer. We're not going to cooperate with him. I'm so sick of looking at politics because that anger, you might not think, grows all the way from you and grows down to your family, which involves even more anger. And if we don't have communication or conversation with our kids, well, Dad says the president's an idiot. Well, then therefore, Dad's right. And I'll tell you, I know Dad. He says we got to get a gun, put it in the closet, and protect ourselves because there won't be any law and order. We won't be able to afford to eat or buy gas or even have a house anymore simply because the economy, is in such crappy condition. Does this excuse the school shootings that are occurring? No. Can we stop them? You darn bet we can. By simply regulating new laws that control the gun business. Number 2, as I've mentioned before, unhandcuff police officers so they can do their jobs. Number 3, let's tighten up on legislation and let our congressmen, our senators, and our representatives know how we feel and what we think needs to be done. I preach so many times on podcasts to remind those legislators that they work for the voter. Oftentimes, I wonder if they even hear that. And during election years right now and the elections that we're going to see coming up in November, I'm going to wonder if they even heard anything that we said. Or are they just too busy saying, he said that and he's a dummy? I don't know. But I do know this. We need to wrap that up. We need to have our legislators, and we can get rules and laws in force to protect our children from these low lives, to open the courtroom doors and to what I call unhandcuff police officers. Just recently in the state of Washington, a 27-year-old Washington State patrolman was run down and killed by a gentleman that should not have been even behind a wheel of any car. Apparently an alien that came from Mars, because we know that the open borders would not have anything to do with this violence. So it must have been a Martian ship that dropped him off. This is terrible. He killed a police officer, 27 years old, a father and a wonderful wife, and now that family is destroyed. My hat is off to all police officers, all sheriffs, all types of organizations that are first responders that put a shirt on their back each day with a target on it to protect us and to help us in cases of emergency. Simply because our legislative folks are too busy arguing across the aisles to get anything done, to give these officers the power to do their jobs and not worrying about being prosecuted or, quote, using the wrong pronoun when arresting someone. I'm sick of it. I'm done with it. I want to see action. If you want to hear a good podcast that talks about action, I'm not one of those that back a lot of people that are politically orientated. But just recently, I fell really enthused and really interested in a show called Undivided, which is on your favorite podcast platform. And it's extremely well done. Brandy Cruz is her name. She was with Fox News for a while and now is doing podcasting. And she's watching what Olympia's doing. She's bringing out the facts of what's going on with the legislation and what lawmakers are thinking and airing it so we can hear and not have to listen to them at speeches that they've all pre-written so that the facts are covered up a little or a lot. I'm really convinced right now that this is what we need, is more people sounding off, starting those conversations as Brandy has done. I truthfully believe that each one of us have a right, and our rights are to protect our families, and we must do so in this time of turmoil, hatred, and senseless killing. Well, thanks for listening. I appreciate each time that you tune me in. And I would like to also remind you that you can send me an email and we can discuss via email or on the show maybe some points that I've overlooked, or maybe you can just tell me, oh, your show is yuck. I want to hear from both sides because you see, a podcaster kind of sits on the fence, and every once in a while I fall off and end up on one side or the other. So if you've got comments, please email me at kkeeba, K-E-E-B-A, agency, @gmail.com. That's KEEBAAGENCY @gmail.com. Or check us out on our website, Keep Us Smiling. We keep building it and putting more program information. And in the next few weeks, you'll see even more interesting facts and figures of our podcast network. You can listen to our current shows or just check out some written information in our bio of the actual people that work with us on our Disruptors network of fine podcast productions. Well, thanks so much. I'd like to leave you with these few words. Even in these trying times, we have to keep a vision in our minds of America and the positive goals that we need to reach. With that, in love in our heart for each other and a helping hand up for those that need it, you'll always keep us smiling, and America will keep growing.